Even if I am playing audibly in your house and you are listening to me, which, by the way, thank you if you are, if you don't hear anything I say, it never has a chance to make an impact. Everything rises and falls on your leadership, on your personality traits, on your characteristics, on how you live life, your productivity, the whole 9 yards. So as an organization is growing, obviously that process is very painful. And, I have my own business with Burkhart Creative Agency, and oftentimes I find myself frustrated with not being as far along as I would like. And part of that has to do with the fact that I, as a leader, am not incredible at sales. Now I'm getting better at it. I'm taking courses, I'm reading books, I have mentors that are helping me along in the process of learning how to position my business in a way that communicates its value to the people who need what I do in like video production, in photography, in article writing, just to get that top line awareness part of the funnel figured out for them, get that filling up so that they have some leads and some attention going into their marketing funnel. And so long story short, all that to say is that, every once in a while you have a chance to have some reflection by who you work with, right? So I work with a number of companies all the time, so I'm not talking about anyone specifically, but I find that I get frustrated because we don't move as far forward as fast as we can, but then I also get frustrated because a lot of businesses that are moving forward very fast are actually very difficult to work with because of how unorganized they are. And so that's one thing that I've really realized is the strength of our company is that we have our ducks in a row, right? We are organized, we get things done, we have processes, we have ways that we keep track of projects, we do a good job of managing the workflow, managing like the time that's needed to be spent on it. We're able to outsource work that is too much to other people to be able to take care of that load. And so that's really what I've discovered is a strong suit. We're not necessarily growing and expanding as fast as we like because of me, but because of me, we're also more organized than most businesses I run into. We don't have the drama that most businesses have. We don't have that like internal conflict and that like ego bashing and all those other things because quite frankly, I just don't put up with it. It's not something I like to have happen. I think it takes away from productivity. I think it takes away from people's potential. And for me, like the only thing I care about is people's potential because not only is it good for my business to have people executing at their full level, but at the end of the day, like people working with me could be a very small part of the working experience. And why wouldn't I want them to be kicking major butt for both me and for whoever they decide to go work for if they ever do decide to? And I can tell you that as someone who has worked in companies that are disorganized, those kinds of companies have a high turnover rate. And that makes it even harder. And how much personal development can you have when you're trying to keep your head above water and you leave somewhere 6 months after you start, right? You don't get a chance to develop personally as well as a place that you get to stay at a while where you thrive and grow and have a situation that's both challenging and caring and stable. And so that's one thing that I've been realizing as I'm growing Burkhart Creative Agency, that I value stability quite a lot. And because of that, it shortchanges our growth potential. And I think at some point I'm going to be able to hire that out and that'll mitigate some of that where we can kind of have that synergy and that tension of growth and organization. But as for now, we just have slow growth, but we have stability and organization. And I think for the companies that end up working for us or with us as clients, as partners in their marketing plans, that is going to be something that they really enjoy. Is they're going to enjoy not feeling like we're panicked and showing up late to the meeting and studying all their stuff last second, that we're on top of it, that we're in control of the situation, that we're prepared, and that we have a plan in place and it's not something we thought about in the restroom before we walked into the meeting. So I brought in Rylan for this part of my vlog because we actually just finished up a pretty big project. It was 6 long video sessions. Just to provide like a little context for you guys, we ended up getting brought on by a friend of mine at Chesley Lunday, and he had been in contact with a guy who was a book author to revamp and just recalibrate a book that he has had out called What You Do Best. It's been called other things in the past, but he wanted to be able to revamp it for today's age, for today's way of millennials and Gen Z, the way they communicate, as opposed to how they did back when he wrote the book, which was like older than I am. And so we had the honor and the privilege to be able to be part of that process and that project. And so we actually created some video courses that are like supplementary material to be used in like groups and alone to supplement with the book that was made, to be able to discover who you are as a person, your gifts and your talents, and how that can affect everyone else. So Rylan's on because she was the one that edited like the entire thing. We both shot that project in various places in downtown Phoenix. And so, yeah, we just wanted to share with you guys some of the things that we learned, because as you know, this vlog is all about sharing my journey and building a business. And obviously, like, the efficiencies and the ways that we actually like do the work are part of building the business. So we'll probably kick it off with Rylan, since I feel like I've been already talking too much. But talk us a little bit from like the video editing side and like collaboration with the client, what tools you were able to use to be able to like make this whole process efficiently. Because tell them what the timeline was that we had to deliver on this.
So we had about 2.5 weeks to deliver this project, and it was basically a bunch of like smaller videos put together to make this one huge video. So each video was about 20 to like 25 minutes long in length. So it was basically us going through, making those cuts, making those edits, making it sound good, look good, do all the jazzy, as we call here at Burkhart Creative Agency, razzle dazzle.
That's right.
So we're razzle dazzling it up, and just recently, so I think it was the week that we had just started the project, Adobe came out with this new update, and we were just I was going through, I was exploring it, and we found this new review panel. And basically within the review panel is this new software called frame.io, where you can upload a video and then share it amongst the organization or people who are reviewing the video, which was really a big help for us in this project, because the guy who was reviewing the videos could go through and see exactly like to the minute what he wanted changed at that moment. And it was very easy for me and efficient for us to go through and be like, okay, right here, good, export, done, next. So I think that was a big driving factor in getting the videos done and produced so quickly.
Well, because in the previous project, we had this like huge but Word doc with like highlights and like all these other like color coding that had to happen for us to be able to like identify which parts needed changed.
Right.
So like, how was the interface set up on, so you explained a little bit, but basically like explain a little bit how the interface worked and how we were able to identify like where they wanted changes.
Right. So when the guy would go through, he would go and click on a moment and he would make a comment on that like precise like minute, second, whatever he wanted changed, and then he could go and drag it to whatever else he like wanted changed if it was like a certain sequence, and he could make a comment right there. And what was super efficient for me as an editor, I could actually check mark if I had done that comment, which was just so like more efficient than doing the Word document and going through Google Drive, because rather than going through and switching back and forth, it was all within the same platform. It was all in Adobe. So I was able to like look directly at the comment and go right into my timeline rather than clicking through different or like referencing different screens. So it was very much so more efficient in that aspect.
For sure, yeah. It was really exciting to have that be part of it. And even I could go in as like the kind of like the project manager and be able to just like see what got done, what didn't get done, and it was just so efficient. And thankfully, just for clarification purposes, that the client themselves, they don't have to have Adobe Premiere. Like Frame.io kind of like stands on its own as the review platform, but on our end, it's all together, which makes it just incredibly fast for us doing the edits. So thank you for sharing that part. The other part that was really great when it came to like centralizing the information was I ended up really pushing the client to move to one central communication point. So previously when we had clients, sometimes they'd send an email to Rylan for an edit, sometimes they'd send it to me to an edit. And then like if someone asked me a question, I would have no idea what the conversation was up until that point. So it's like, okay. And then on top of that, especially if like the person's like a little more like on friendly terms as opposed to just like strictly a client, like they have your phone number. So like we'd have text messages and emails and comments on stuff and the Google Doc to check. And so like the information was scattered all over the place, and inefficiencies like that bother me like crazy, and it makes it hard for us to have communication right. And I always want the client to feel like we're all on the same page. And so I forced him to go on Slack. And so we actually have a Slack channel that we use for all our internal communication. And we ended up creating a specific Slack channel that was private just for Rylan, for me, and for the client to be able to have all our communications. And so that way, if I was able to tell her something but wanted to make sure that he saw it, I would tag her in it so she knew it was for her. But then Chesley, who was the guy that was really heading up the project on the client side, he was able to look at that and say like, oh, okay, like this happened, and he just like kind of knew and had like a mental check mark on his brain. Or if I had a question specifically for him, I could type it in, tag him in it, and then that way he knew it was for him, but then Riley Lynn could see it also, and so she knew the conversations that him and I were having together. And so that was really, really handy. So from like the actual getting the work done side, we had everything inside of Premiere, and then from the communication side, we had everything inside of Slack. And it was so much nicer because for everyone, the communication is transparent, and that makes it a whole lot easier. And even I'd find myself like texting him, and then I would like go and like unsend it and then like send it to him in Slack just to be like, no, like this is, we got to commit to this process. So yeah, so I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it was super. It was definitely a step up from our last project, but that's what this is all about, learning, right?
Right, and like you guys can literally check the reviews. It was for a guy named Jeff. He loved what we did for the project. So certainly on like his end, like he doesn't, not that he doesn't know any better, but like it went better than he expected. Yeah, for sure. But now that we've got these new tools that we've decided to use, I know he would be even more ecstatic on that. So really it helps us on our end. And like we and
it made the timeline, because we did have a crunch obviously, but it did make the timeline. I do believe we were on our regular schedule, it would have cut it in half easily.
Oh yeah. What we got done in 2.5 weeks would never have happened with the workflow that we had before. Anyway, thank you for sharing. We just want to share that with you because guess what? An inefficient business has a hard time doing good work, and that's part of the process of building a business is getting more and more efficient. And so, yeah, we just wanted to share with you guys a little bit of behind the scenes of what it's like on the production side and how we're building Burkhart Creative Agency to be a very efficient and very professional and very easy to work with company. And I think that worked this time, and I was very pleased. So I'm here finishing up some stuff on the computer, kind of winding down for the night. Winding down at 9:30 at night, and you know, it's been a long day watching the kiddo and working and all that, but more importantly than that, I was writing an article for a company that I'm doing a guest blogging on, and they were just talking about like, you know, how do you get business and all that other stuff. And you know, the thing that I keep coming back to over and over again is attention, right? And so as you guys know, I've been working on my agency, Burkhart Creative Agency, as far as like focusing on the top end of the marketing funnel, which is attention. And you know, other people talk about like, oh, like attention is currency or whatever and all those other things, and sometimes that's like a cool thing to repeat. But if you stop and think about it for a second, like if you're playing this video in your living room and you're not like paying attention, you're like off cooking food or checking your phone, like the words and the things that I'm trying to communicate just float around in empty air. And so even if I am playing audibly in your house and you are listening to me, which by the way, thank you if you are, if you don't hear anything I say, it never has a chance to make an impact. It never has a chance to persuade you in any particular way or help your business or help you think a new thought or think of things differently. So attention really is everything. If your business doesn't have attention, you can't sell someone who doesn't know you exist, your services or products. If you're a thought leader and you're trying to get people to think about things differently and people don't hear the words that are coming out of your mouth, you haven't made an impact in them. And so I just keep coming back to that over and over and over again, and that's why people like the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world and the Grant Cardones, like let's just take them for example. Like Gary Vaynerchuk is all about like being in the place that people are paying the most attention, right? He wants to be able to put in effort and put in effort in the places that people are because of the attention, right? Grant Cardone talks about omnipresence and being like posting and being as many places as possible because some people prefer Twitter, some people prefer LinkedIn, some people prefer Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever. Who knows if anyone even uses Snapchat anymore? And it's because there's attention to be gained from every single platform. So again, it just comes back to, you know, the Grant Cardone talks about like if you have a money problem, you have an attention problem. And so fundamentally there's obviously more to a business than just getting attention, but that's where it begins. If you don't have attention, essentially it's like no fuel being in the car. Your car may not be running for many different reasons, but it sure ain't gonna run if it doesn't have fuel. And so our goal in my business is to put the fuel in the car. Now, whether your spark plugs work, whether your timing is off, whether or not, you know, you threw a belt or something like that, that's on you, right? That's for you to figure out or hire someone else to take care of. But for us, it's like we want to put fuel in the car. We want to put a lot of fuel in the car. So yeah, that's just been what's bounced around in my mind is just the idea that like the attention is really, really, really important. And with that said, like one of the things that this is kind of like the part two, whatever, I'll change my camera angle so it's not so one and the same. Part of that article that I was writing, I came back to like strategy, just like super practical. Like if you're watching this video and you only take away one thing, this is the thing. To do 4 things. Tell your story, engage, tell your story, engage. Literally just do things over and over again. And realize it's only 2 things, but you say it 4 times for effect. So yeah, I mean, so like we put out so much content, but at the end of the day, the algorithms and people reward you for actually talking to them. Crazy, right? And kind of no different than going into a networking event and shaking everyone's hand and saying, hey, my name is Steven, I have a creative agency. Hey, my name is Steven, I have a creative agency. Hey, my name is Steven, I have a creative agency. You get the picture. That's kind of what our content is doing, and it hopefully is more than that. Hopefully it's thought-provoking and asks questions and is engaging in its own right. But there's still nothing quite like commenting on someone else's content and sending them a message and telling them how great their content was and how helpful it was for you, and being able to like have that reciprocation on the other end of like, what's the comment that you would want about your content? You know, how often do people talk about how impactful your content has been, even if you know that they've liked every post that you've ever made? It's rewarding and nice to hear those things. And so be that person for someone else. Go like their content, go actually comment on it, put something thoughtful into it, and that'll go a long way to building that connection with people. That you will start out with the content and you'll get them curious and learning about you with the storytelling, but it's really the engagement that's actually going to build that connection. And for me, who's someone who loves systems and things just kind of rolling in the background and automated, you can automate and outsource a lot of things. You can automate and outsource your content creation, your distribution, running ads on stuff, all that other jazz, but you cannot scale, you cannot outsource, you cannot, you cannot outsource or automate building connections. So let that be a lesson to you.